I'm a strong believer in there's a tool for every job. Well, today's job is to create a tool to hold all of your tools. So we're gonna build this cool custom tool caddy. I've got it set up for my knitting supplies, but you can do just about anything with this. Let's get started. The inspiration for today's tutorial came from the garage, as all good sewing projects really should, right? Now, what I'm talking about is those wonderful 5-gallon buckets that have the cool draped over tool caddy where you can put your, let's say, crowbar and your hammers and your screwdrivers and all that kind of stuff. Well, as I've recently gotten into knitting, I'm using it as my craft to do when I'm traveling. And so I wanted to be able to take something to the couch and then to the aircraft. So I started by playing around with building this, and I'm going to walk you through the steps to create a custom tool caddy. You can do whatever you want with it. I've seen these awesome for scissors and rotary cutters as well. This is fun. Watch this real quick before we get started today. This is the prototype I was playing with. I saw those cool yarn containers where folks would have a ball of yarn inside of a plastic bin like that, and then they'd have a hole. And I realized if you did that and you tried to travel in the middle of the project, you would have your yarn on one side, this lid in the middle, and your project on the other. So I started working past it. So that's where the inspiration for this project came from. Watch how this works. This is really, really cool. And then what you also see left behind here, I started trying to make it an elastic style sleeve pocket, and it didn't work. I thought it would be cool, you know, maybe you could slide it on your arm if you were going jogging while knitting. Still wasn't a great idea. So this new and improved model is going to knock your socks off. So what you need to do is you want to start with whatever kind of firm container you're going to use for around the house. So this one was a bucket from some protein powder or something like that, and it had the lid. And the importance to this lid is it's nice and square. I know it's a circle. I've got my shapes down, but it's firm and square, so I can take it and use it as a tracing on my half yard of fabric. Is about all you'll need for something like this. Again, I want you to see the steps. You can adjust the size. So I used a half yard for my project. If you're covering a 5-gallon bucket, you're going to need a lot more fabric, obviously. But I used my lid to trace with about a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around to create the circle, which then becomes, let me remove a few of these tools so we can really play with this, which then becomes the bottom, you see right here, of the tool caddy. So we need that piece. The other thing we're going to need is we're going to need to build a side wall that is basically all of this fun stuff, right? So it actually looks like this at one part of its life. So to do that, I basically took and I measured around my bucket with about a 1/2 inch to spare. Let me make sure I'm showing you that the right direction. I might have picked it up incorrectly. Yes, that's better. Nope, it was the other way. So yeah, comes around, it's got about a 1/2 inch to spare, so we know we've got the right size. You could also measure around your circle. That's the way the real math works, right? But it's also about twice as tall as the bucket because it's gonna fit inside also. So that's the entire wall piece. And the third section we're gonna need to create is what I used to create these pockets on the outside. And that is done with a strip that is just a little bit longer than your wall piece needs to be. And I'm going to say it's about 4 or 5 inches tall. Again, set it up proportionally to the size of your bucket or the size of your tools you need to store. So step one, after everything is cut out, right, is to go ahead and start to prepare the actual parts to create the pockets from. So what I've done is I took my rectangle, and you can see right here I've just folded the edges over and top stitched them one time down so that I don't have any raw edges on the bucket. Okay, so that's real simple, and I only need to do it to 3 sides, the long sides and one on the other, because this raw edge side I'm going to catch in my seam allowance. That's where we're going to start. For the wall, it is very complicated to get it set up correctly. I don't mean to frighten you. I'm trying to tell you, think about it twice before you start running the machine so you don't get yourself in trouble. So what I want you to do is I want you to take and I want you to dress it one last time to make sure you know which side is correct. At this moment, let's just take a second and we're going to go ahead and we're going to pin this circle to the bottom here. Okay? And what that is going to be is that's going to be the part that will eventually fit inside of the bucket. So that means now that this top edge, we need to go ahead and also prepare for a finished edge. So I'm just going to fold it over not once, but twice, like this. I'm going to take it to a sewing machine, and I'm going to run a straight stitch right down the top of that to secure it. So this will secure the top end, and the bottom end will be stitched to that circle, so we won't worry about that. And at the end of this, we will be doing some satin stitching to dress up the edges for transport. So we've got that all but covered there. All right, now that we have that top edge, let me just trim this off because you know I don't love having my threads hanging everywhere. So again, once we have our top edge determined and our bottom edge determined, this is where, again, we always want to make sure we understand what it is we're building, especially if you're kind of creating as you go. I no longer need to leave that pinned in there because I know where it's going to end up again. But I just want to reiterate that this part is actually going to fold back into here, so that center is going to be in the bucket. And then this is going to fold out this way. So even though I called this the top edge, it actually becomes a bottom edge. We're going to be working on the correct side. So I did mine with solid, so it's a little hard to tell which is the correct side. But now that I have that seam in here, I really do know. And I'm going to take my pocket portions piece, right? And I'm going to set it on here. And I want to point out we have that raw edge right here to begin with. So one of the very first things I'm going to do is I'm just going to come over here to the machine again. And let me show you as this thing sets in. Let me set this into the bucket for a little bit. This will make more sense. We are now creating this strip of pockets. So this distance right here, which is roughly 1 inch, is this distance right here from that finished edge we just made to the bottom of the pocket, okay? So, and that again, it's proportional to what you like. I'm gonna do a really fine, less than 1/4 inch seam allowance because I want these threads to hide in here. So I'm just tacking this in place. And the reason I'm tacking this in place is I want to show you how to make your pockets. And again, if you're doing this custom, I want you to be able to make these pockets custom to whatever kinds of tools you're utilizing. Okay? So for example, I had some knitting needles. So what I would do in a situation like this is I would go, I want these 2 knitting needles to be with me. So I'm going to slide them kind of into the pocket portion there. And then because this is right in that seam allowance, I'm going to cheat it over a little bit. And then I'm going to make another row of stitching right here. And then I let my eye make sure that these run parallel, just so it looks really nice when I'm done. So now we can put a row of stitching here. And off goes my needles. Very active supplies today. We're just going to run that up here. Now, as I get to the top, though, what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to back stitch. And the reason I want to back stitch is this is where I'm putting my tools in and out of these pockets for time. So I really want that sewing up there to hold well. After I create all of my pockets, I'm going to come through here and I'm going to show the bottom. I'll be right back to show you how that works. Now, before I can show you the actual bottom, I want to show you one more trick because this is the part I really like. I did include a piece of Velcro and made a pocket with kind of a pleat at the bottom so it was nice and wide so that I could keep things like little stitch counters and different things inside of that pocket, and I could secure it so when I do throw it in my backpack, it doesn't get away. So this particular pocket, you can see I've already created a couple of different channels, some wide, some narrow. This one really narrow because apparently as a knitter, I need a crochet hook. For mistakes only, apparently, I've been learning. Now, so this is a nice little open pocket. You could slide something else in, but right here what I want to do is I want to give myself a bunch of extra body to this, right? So I'm going to literally push it up maybe 1 inch or 2. I'm going to first set my Velcro in place. So I'm going to peel this off. And I'm going to take the Velcro, and we do not want to glue the Velcro. You don't want to try to stitch through sticky back Velcro. You want to just use regular sew-in Velcro. So I'm going to pin it in place now. So our first step is to stitch the Velcro down. So I'm going to come do that. And I'm going to sew around all 4 sides of it, but I'm pulling the pin out right as I get to it. I just had to do that so it wouldn't move on my way over. So I'm going to take a couple stitches, pivot with my needle down. Pivot at each corner. Just like this. And I did leave maybe 1/2 inch from the last sew-in seam I had done, or the last edge of the other pocket, because I want to have a little bit of gap. That's what helps create that pleat, so we have a little bit of ability to get our hands in there, right? A back stitch to hold it. I love my thread cutter, so I'm going to hit that. Okay, now we want to place the other half of the Velcro before we secure this pocket down. So this is going to sit right here, and my pocket is going to come over. So now, oops, let me see if I can spin this. Maybe you'll be able to see it a little bit better. So I want to have a similar gap about like this. So now I'm going to pick this pocket up with my Velcro. Of course, you could pin it if you wanted. You want to have your Velcro near the top edge, just down a little ways. And now we're going to go ahead and secure this piece of Velcro just the same way we did the other. We'll be able to create the sidewall of the pocket just like we did the others. And the trick comes in when we finish the bottom of all of the pocket. And I'll be showing you that here just in a second, but I want to get this all prepped out. Some steps just aren't worth rushing through, right? And other steps, hey, that's when it's time for a coffee break. And again, backstitch to secure. Use a thread cutter if you've got it, because you got it, you might as well use it. Okay, first piece in place, second piece in place. Now I'm going to have about a similar distance. Maybe that's a 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to bring this over, and now I'm going to secure this right here. And if you wanted, you could actually close your Velcro, and then you can scoot it over. We'll be trimming all those loose threads in a little bit. So I'm going to scoot this over just a little bit more. So I've got that pocket in there that I wanted to create. Now we're going to go back to the sewing machine, and if you felt like it was a little bit cumbersome this way, you most certainly can now flip it over, right? Just make sure that your bottom edge still looks sharp, nice and clean. Give yourself a little bit of extra fabric in there to create that good pocket. You want to get it just right. There we go. And then we're going to stitch it. Again, top stitching at the top, back stitching at the top to secure. And then I'm just going to leave a little pocket on the other side of that so we have what we need. And I'm going to cut that real quick. And the other nice thing about that is because I've created a little bit of pocket ability, I also still have that raw edge. Now, sometimes I've created pockets and they stop right here. So that's why I also finished that edge. So we could do all kinds of things. Maybe you need to stick a big rotary cutter or something in there. Mine on this particular project is going to make it all the way to the edge. So that's golden. Before we can put the bottom circle on though, we need to secure all of this. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back up and I'm going to start with this edge on the bottom of that pocket creator. And I'm going to sew right on top of the thread I used originally. And then I'm going to show you what happens when we come into the pocket that has the Velcro closure. Okay. So now I'm going to stop as I come right to the edge of that pocket there. And I want to show you what we're going to do is we're building in this fold or this crease right here. So I'm actually pushing away from the needle right now. So I'm going to lift my presser foot up. I'm going to kind of push this and use my scissor tip to fold the fabric back over. I'm not sure if you can see that or not. So I'm going to secure this and I'll pull it out of the machine so that you can see it a little bit better. Just for the fold, that's okay. It's worth it for the video, right? So I'm going to come down here, secure a little bit. Okay. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to push into the pocket so that way when this opens up, I love good Velcro, it's got a nice little bit of place so you can slide your fingers right in there. So on the other side, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to push into it and let it fold over. And I probably should have given myself just a little bit extra pocket, but I'm so excited about showing you the rest of the detail that I didn't give myself maybe as much as we should have. That's okay. You're custom making yours as well. So we're just going to push it in to the seam where we're working and let it fold over. And that's a great trick for all of those. And now we're just going to sew to secure all of the rest of the bottom of the pocket as we go through. So as I said, once your pocket is all insert and ready to rock and roll, our next step is to go ahead and make sure we set our circle into the bottom of the container, but it's now the top of the project. I know it sounds crazy. Don't worry, I'll get you through it. So we're gonna make sure that these are right sides together, and because I'm dealing with solids, this is the right side of my project. So I'm gonna take this, and let's see, I'm going to the machine right-handed, so I'm just gonna lay this real close to about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge. I'm just going to kind of grab it, and we're going to sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance around the circle. We're just going to follow that circle nice and slow. But I want to make sure I've got enough room to get back and make and grab that straight edge to go all the way up this long edge when we're done. So we're gonna just start by going around the circle, right sides together. And I'm kind of holding back on the circle a little bit, and I'm letting the wall, the rectangle, feed in. And then as I get close within that last inch, if I need to make any slight adjustments to the circle or the wall, I could if I needed to, but these should be measured out pretty good. I'm gonna cut my threads, and then as I come around, I'm gonna now secure this long outer edge for my top stitching. And I did leave a little bit of a gap in here just to make sure I could line everything back up. When I go back around for the satin stitching, I can catch that if I need. Okay, just like this. I'm gonna give that other 1/4 inch seam allowance there. And we might as well back up because we want all of this to secure, last for a nice long time. And now as I'm heading up these sides of the walls, remember we have the sides of the pockets we want to catch there too. So I just want to make sure everything's right where I want it as I approach that area. Stitch it up. Definitely get a top stitch or back stitch at the top here, I should say. Back stitch to secure like that. Let's cut that. Come back in and address this bottom corner if we need down here, right? We still have a little bit of that opening. So my trick is now I just flatten it right over, and I'm gonna finish that circle out. So I flattened the seam I created up the wall. I'm gonna back stitch into those threads I had, so that secures all those layers. And then I just finish that circle right out. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you on my bag just to help save a little bit of time in the video because I want to talk about our drawstring and our buttonhole. Because I started taking just this portion, leaving the plastic bin behind, that was the goal. Now, this stays at home. This goes with me on my road trips. This was a raw edge. So I just simply took and set my zigzag, and I did a satin stitch down and around on those same seams we just finished on this bag. Of course, you'll trim your threads first. Now, I've got a really cool foot that I like to use on my sewing machine, and I'm gonna lay it right here so you can see it. Now, inside of this foot, there's a little bar. So when I'm doing a zigzag, what I do is I set it up so the width of my zigzag will zig in the fabric and then zag on the other side of the bar. So this would be set up like this if I was looking at it. This foot would be coming down towards me, and so I would be binding into the fabric right there with the thread, and then it would be zigzagging over the other edge of that metal bar, and that helps you not create a tangled mess of your threads and secure that. And of course, if you have a serger, bust it out and serge up the edge and go around the bottom circle. That works fantastic as well. Okay, our next step we're gonna do for that is we're gonna take our bag and we're gonna drop it in, and we're gonna fold it over. Okay, just like this. So you can see how it's gonna now sit in the container. Okay, so this area right up here, it'd be the perfect area to go ahead and create the area where we did our drawstring. Okay, so this drawstring was done by creating a buttonhole. So you wanna figure out where your fold is gonna be. Okay, and I don't want my buttonhole right over my Velcro because the Velcro I found out I used an awful lot. So I'm gonna find myself an area maybe over this wide pocket. And I'm going to set an area right in here, and I'm going to take one more pin and I'm going to run it through this way. Okay, and I'm going to put a buttonhole in there, and I'll be right back with that. All right, fantastic. Now, I should point out, actually, because I did the buttonhole for you while you were on coffee break, and I also did the top stitching around. Please notice that I had the free arm off of the machine, or I took the tool tray off of the machine, so I could slide my tool bag right over that free arm and make it very easy for me to set the buttonhole. I opened up the buttonhole, and then I went down about 1/2 inch and I created a whole row of top stitching. So now that helps me divide this up. So when I drop it into the bucket, and of course all that satin stitching would have been done first, then this will fold right over the outer edge like this, and I'm gonna get my tool tray out of the way for you. Okay, so now this can drop in. Okay, here's our buttonhole, and then at this point what I like to use is some sort of nylon cording that I've melted the end, and then I'm just going to run it on a safety pin through like this all the way one cord and then back out. And I've got these really cool cord locks that I like them a lot because they have 2 holes so you can do different adjustments. And the reason I think that is so cool is because I'm on an airplane. I just found this beautiful, it looks like a medallion that you'd wear around your neck, but it's actually used for cutting yarns and threads. There's a razor blade right in here. So what I normally do is I have one in one of my tool pockets on my bag, but what I really want to do now that this is so pretty is I want to connect it to my thread so that it can kind of be hanging off as a medallion, or it could also sit inside of one of those pockets. And then you load up the rest of your tool caddy with everything that you need for around the house or transport, so you've always got your arts and crafts with you no matter where you go. And check me out, you'll see me somewhere sitting in an airport on my way out to Missouri to film more here at Man Sewing.